A routine morning disrupted. The California sun had barely crept above the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling Tesla gigafactory. As Elon Musk stepped out of his sleek black Model X, it was a typical morning for the billionaire innovator. His days were usually defined by back-to-back meetings, engineering reviews, and ambitious plans for Mars colonization. Yet this morning felt different. A nagging feeling lingered, one he couldn't shake off. As Elon crossed the Tesla courtyard, he noticed employees filing into the building, their faces reflecting a spectrum of emotions. Determination, fatigue, excitement. These were the people who turned his visions into reality, and lately he had found himself paying closer attention to them. "Morning, Mr. Musk," greeted Tommy, a young security guard with a warm smile. Tommy's badge was slightly askew, his face lined with exhaustion. "How's the baby?" Elon asked, recalling their last conversation. 3 hours of sleep at a time, Tommy replied with a weary grin. "But it's worth it, sir." Elon nodded, his mind wandering. For years, he had been labeled a genius, a visionary, but also a cold and calculating executive. In recent months, he had started questioning that image, wondering if he had overlooked something vital, the human side of innovation. Inside the sleek glass walls of his office, Sarah, his ever-efficient assistant, was already waiting. "Your schedule, sir," she said, holding out a tablet. "The board wants to discuss the Q4 production targets." "Later," Elon replied, waving her off. "Show me the employee satisfaction reports instead, the raw data." Sarah blinked in surprise. "All of it, sir." "All of it." Elon settled into his chair, scanning the dense charts and graphs that filled his screen. The numbers painted a story of productivity, efficiency, and record-breaking profits. Yet, something was missing. His eyes lingered on a particular set of data. Employee feedback from the engineering department. The words exhaustion, stress, and overwork popped up more than he liked. But before he could delve deeper, his phone buzzed with a reminder about his next meeting. The day unfolded in its usual chaotic rhythm. Investor calls, design reviews, and supply chain discussions. But throughout, Elon found his thoughts returning to the employees he passed each morning, their silent stories woven into the fabric of Tesla's success. By lunchtime, the buzzing cafeteria offered a stark contrast to the morning quiet. Employees laughed and chatted over steaming plates of food. Elon observed from his office window, a subtle frown etched on his face. "James," he called to his head of HR during a brief break. "How well do we know our employees? Really know them?" James hesitated. "Sir, we conduct regular surveys and reviews. The metrics are solid." "I'm not asking about metrics," Elon interrupted. "Do we know their struggles? Their lives outside these walls?" "That's not typically part of our scope, sir." "Maybe it should be," Elon mused, more to himself than anyone else. By evening, as the day shift gave way to the night crew, Elon remained in his office, unusually restless. His gut told him something was wrong, something he wasn't seeing. When his phone buzzed again at 9:47 p.m., it was with an alert from the new employee monitoring system he had quietly implemented to identify signs of distress among staff. The flagged message came from an internal forum. "Does anyone have any leftover food from the cafe? I can work an extra hour in exchange." The desperation behind the carefully worded post struck him. It wasn't the kind of request he expected from one of Tesla's engineers. He checked the timestamp, posted just minutes ago by an employee named Maria Torres. Curiosity piqued, Elon leaned forward. "Computer," he commanded, "pull up Maria Torres's profile." The screen filled with data. 18 months at Tesla. Engineering department. A spotless record. But what caught his attention were her time blocks. Maria had been working double shifts, 6 o'clock a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. for over 3 months. The consistency was alarming, as were her declining attendance at non-essential meetings, including one where she was up for a raise. "Sarah," he called. Yes, sir. These logs for Maria Torres. Are they accurate? Yes, sir. Sarah confirmed after a quick check. She's been logging those hours for weeks. Her performance reviews are stellar. No complaints from her supervisors. Elon's eyes narrowed. And her pay rate? Standard for her level, Sarah replied, hesitating. She was due for a raise last month but postponed her review. Why? Elon asked, but Sarah had no answer. His attention shifted to the security feed. Maria's workstation appeared on screen. The camera showed a young woman, her dark hair tied back in a loose bun, hunched over her computer. Even through the grainy footage, her exhaustion was evident. Elon felt a pang of unease. A high-performing engineer working endless hours, skipping meals, and asking for leftover food. Something didn't add up. No, he said firmly. This one's different. What do you mean, sir? Sarah asked cautiously. I mean, I'm going to find out for myself. As the clock ticked past midnight, Elon settled into his chair, his mind racing. This wasn't about a single meal or even one employee's struggles. It was about understanding the cracks in a system he had built, and he was prepared to break every protocol to uncover the truth. Unraveling the threads. Maria Torres didn't know she was being watched. She sat at her workstation, eyes fixed on her screen, her fingers moving swiftly over the keyboard. The faint hum of the Tesla factory surrounded her, punctuated by the occasional clang of machinery or murmur of late-night engineers. It was 11:15 p.m., and Maria was just beginning to wind down after another grueling double shift. Elon Musk leaned back in his chair, watching her through the security feed from his office. He had spent the last hour poring over everything he could find about Maria Torres. The raw data painted an unsettling picture. A woman who gave her all to the company, but seemed to be crumbling under the weight of unseen burdens. Maria's time logs showed an unrelenting pattern of 16-hour workdays. Her attendance was impeccable, her work flawless, and her reputation among supervisors untarnished. Yet beneath that veneer of excellence, the red flags were numerous: missed reviews, skipped meals, and a poignant message in the employee forum that no one had yet answered. Elon's gut told him that Maria's situation was more than a simple case of overwork. There was a story here, one that the spreadsheets and surveillance cameras couldn't fully explain. Sarah, he called, his assistant reappearing at the door. Yes, sir. I need everything on Maria Torres, not just her employee file. Public records, social media, anything you can find. Sarah hesitated, her professionalism momentarily eclipsed by concern. That might come off as invasive, sir. Do it anyway, Elon replied, and keep it discreet. As Sarah departed, Elon tapped into Tesla's internal messaging system. He noticed Maria's forum post had been quietly deleted. Moments later, another post appeared. Never mind about the food. I'm fine. Sorry to bother everyone. The words struck him like a blow. He'd seen this before. The stoic resignation of someone trying to conceal their struggles. Elon's phone buzzed with a new message from Sarah. She had compiled a report on Maria, and the details only deepened the mystery. Maria's financial records showed a recent history of turmoil. A once stable credit score had plummeted over the last few months. She had applied for multiple credit cards and been rejected. A second mortgage on her family's home had also been denied. Public records indicated that she had moved from a modest apartment to a significantly cheaper complex in a less desirable area. The real revelation, however, came from her financial transactions. Maria had been making consistent payments to a private medical facility, Innovative Care Solutions. Elon recognized the name. It was a facility specializing in experimental cancer treatments. Insurance often refused to cover their procedures due to their high-risk, high-cost nature. Elon's chest tightened. His mind raced to connect the dots. Maria's double shifts, her skipped meals, the urgency in her forum post. It all pointed to a desperate effort to keep up with mounting medical bills. But whose bills? Was she the patient, or was she caring for someone else? The security feed flickered, drawing Elon's attention back to Maria. She was packing up her desk, neatly organizing her papers and logging out of her system. Despite the late hour, her movements were precise and deliberate, as though she couldn't afford to leave even a trace of disorder behind. Elon made a decision. Outside, the factory's night crew buzzed with activity, but Elon's focus was solely on Maria. He stepped into the parking lot just as her faded blue Toyota pulled out of its spot. A moment later, his driver Dave arrived in the company's black Model X. "Follow her," Elon instructed, climbing into the back seat. Dave raised an eyebrow, but didn't question the command. Years of working for Elon Musk had taught him that the billionaire's whims often led to unexpected revelations. They trailed Maria's car at a safe distance, weaving through Fremont's dimly lit streets. "Something on your mind, sir?" Dave asked, breaking the silence. Elon hesitated before answering. "Have you ever seen someone working themselves to the bone and wondered why?" Dave glanced at him through the rearview mirror. "More times than I can count, sir. My sister was like that once. She worked double shifts for months, trying to pay off medical bills after her husband got sick. Almost broke her." "What happened to her?" Elon asked, his curiosity piqued. "She got help," Dave said simply. "A neighbor stepped in, covered some of her bills, and helped her get back on her feet. Changed her life." Elon didn't reply, but Dave's story lingered in his mind. Was Maria's story a similar one? If so, who was helping her? And if no one was, what did that say about the system he had built? Maria's car turned into a gas station, pulling up to one of the pumps. From the Model X, Elon watched as she stepped out, fishing coins from her pocket to pay for a few gallons of gas. Her movements were slow, her shoulders hunched with exhaustion. Inside the station, she paused by the food aisle, her eyes lingering on a shelf of sandwiches. After a moment, she walked away empty-handed. Dave spoke up cautiously. "Sir, do you want me to?" "No," Elon interrupted. "Not yet." They continued to follow Maria as she left the gas station, her car winding through increasingly run-down neighborhoods. Streetlights were sparse here, and the houses bore the wear and tear of neglect. Finally, she turned into the parking lot of an aging apartment complex. The faded sign read Sunshine Gardens. Maria parked and began unloading her belongings: a laptop bag, a stack of papers, and what looked like a bag of medical supplies. She moved with deliberate care, as though every step cost her precious energy. Elon watched as she climbed the stairs to the third floor, pausing briefly at the landing to catch her breath before entering her apartment. "Wait here," Elon instructed Dave, stepping out of the car. "Sir, this neighborhood." "I'll be fine," Elon said, cutting him off. "Just stay close." The building's exterior stairs creaked under Elon's weight as he ascended to Maria's floor. Outside her door, he paused, listening. Faint voices drifted through the thin walls. "I'm sorry, Mama," Maria said softly. "The cafeteria was closed, but I'll make you something." "You need to eat too," an older woman's voice replied, firm despite its frailty. "I'm not the only one who needs strength." Elon's chest tightened. This wasn't just about Maria. She wasn't working herself to the bone for her own survival. She was fighting for someone else. He knocked gently on the door, uncertain of how to proceed but knowing he couldn't turn back. The voices inside fell silent. Footsteps approached cautiously. "Who is it?" Maria's voice called, tinged with exhaustion and suspicion. "It's Elon Musk," he replied. "I'd like to talk." A long pause followed. When the door finally opened, Maria stood before him, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. "Mr. Musk," she stammered. I don't understand. Why are you here?" Before he could answer, a frail voice called from inside. "Maria, who is it?" Maria turned, panic flashing across her face. "It's nothing, Mama. Just a neighbor." Elon caught a glimpse of the apartment behind her, a small, sparse space dominated by a hospital bed and medical equipment. In that moment, everything he had suspected was confirmed. Maria wasn't just an overworked engineer. She was a daughter fighting to keep her mother alive. "May I come in?" Elon asked, his tone softer now. Maria hesitated, her expression a mix of fear and resignation. Finally, she stepped aside, opening the door wider. "I suppose you'd better," she said quietly. "If you've come this far, you deserve to see the whole picture." Elon stepped into the apartment, bracing himself for what he would find. Whatever it was, he knew it would change everything. Behind the door, Elon stepped into Maria's apartment, his usually sharp gaze now softened by what he saw. The small space spoke of careful budgeting and quiet sacrifice. The scent of disinfectant lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of lavender from a candle flickering on the counter. The living room was dominated by a hospital bed surrounded by an array of medical equipment, oxygen tanks, an IV stand, and a monitor that emitted soft, rhythmic beeps. Maria closed the door behind him, looking equal parts nervous and resigned. She set her laptop bag on a folding table cluttered with papers and medical documents, her shoulders tense. "Mr. Musk," Maria began, her voice measured but shaky, "if this is about my work, I promise." "It's not," Elon interrupted, holding up a hand. "This isn't a performance review, Maria." From the bed, a frail voice called out, "Maria, who is this? Is it about the hospital?" Maria hesitated, then moved toward the bed. "No, Mama. It's—" She glanced at Elon, searching for the right words. "It's my boss, Mr. Musk." Her mother, Elena Torres, turned her head with effort, her eyes sharp despite the weariness in her face. "Your boss," she echoed. "Elon Musk." "Yes, Mom," Elon replied, stepping closer. "And I owe you an apology for intruding at this hour." Elena's lips curved into a faint smile. "Intruding? You're in our home, Mr. Musk. That makes you a guest, and guests don't need to apologize." Maria busied herself adjusting the IV drip, avoiding Elon's gaze. The tension in her movements spoke volumes. She wasn't ready for this conversation, but there was no way to avoid it now. Elena's eyes studied him, sharp and calculating. "You didn't come all the way here to talk about Tesla's stock prices, did you?" "No," Elon admitted. "I came because I noticed something unusual. Maria's been working double shifts for months, skipping breaks, and—" He gestured to Maria's forum message about food. "There was a message she posted earlier tonight. It caught my attention." Maria froze, her back to them. "That was nothing," she said quickly. "I deleted it." "Desperation doesn't delete itself," Elon said softly. "I've been in your shoes, Maria. Not in the same way, but I've worked through nights, skipped meals, and sacrificed more than I thought I could endure. I know the signs, and I see them in you." Maria turned, her face pale. "I didn't ask for your help," she said quietly, her voice firm but tinged with emotion. "I'm handling it." Elena shifted in her bed, her gaze flicking between her daughter and the CEO standing in their cramped living room. "Maria," she said gently, "he's here now. Let him understand." Elon pulled out the crumpled medical bill he had picked up from the parking lot and placed it on the folding table. The numbers spoke louder than words. $147,892.43, an amount that would be unthinkable for most people, even someone with Maria's salary. Maria's jaw tightened as she saw the paper. "That's personal," she said, her voice strained. "You had no right to look at that." "I'm sorry," Elon said, his tone sincere. "But it's clear to me that this isn't just about you. You've been carrying more than anyone should have to bear alone." Maria sighed, sitting down heavily in one of the folding chairs. She rested her elbows on her knees, rubbing her temples. "I don't need charity, Mr. Musk. I just need time. Time to work. Time to pay this off. Time to keep her alive." Elena reached out, her hand trembling, and placed it over Maria's. "Maja, you've already given me everything. You don't have to." "Stop, Mama," Maria interrupted, her voice breaking. "You don't get to say that. Not when you're the only family I have left." Elon watched the exchange in silence, piecing together the story. Elena had once been a nurse, her records showed, working tirelessly to care for others. But a diagnosis had turned her world, and Maria's, upside down. Cancer. The experimental treatments she was receiving were the only hope they had, and Maria had taken on the full burden of ensuring her mother received them. The missed meals, the sleepless nights, the relentless work, they all made sense now. "Maria," Elon said gently, "you're doing everything you can, but this isn't sustainable. You're one person trying to solve a problem that no one should face alone." She looked up at him, her eyes tired but defiant. "And what am I supposed to do? Wait for help that never comes? My mother doesn't have that kind of time." Elena's voice cut through the tension. "Maria, stop. Let him speak." Elon nodded, pulling up a chair. "I don't have all the answers," he admitted, "but what I see here isn't just about you. It's about the system I've built. Tesla is supposed to be revolutionary, but if someone like you, one of our best and brightest, is forced to live like this, then I've failed. We've failed." Maria's defenses wavered for a moment, her exhaustion breaking through. "I don't need speeches," she said quietly. "I need solutions. And you'll have them," Elon promised. "But first, I need to understand. Tell me everything. What brought you here, what you're dealing with, and what you need." Over the next hour, Maria hesitated but eventually opened up. She explained how her mother's illness had forced her to move into a cheaper apartment to afford the treatments, how the bills piled up faster than she could pay them, how she had taken on double shifts, not just to earn overtime, but to keep her mind busy and avoid the crushing weight of guilt. "I can't lose her," Maria said, her voice breaking. "She's all I have left." Elena listened quietly, her expression a mix of pride and sorrow. "You're my daughter," she said softly, "but you're also a fighter. And I hate that you've had to fight this hard." Elon leaned forward, his mind racing. He had spent his career solving impossible problems, creating electric cars, reusable rockets, and plans to colonize Mars. Yet here, in a small apartment in Fremont, was a problem that felt equally daunting. "This has to change," he said finally. "Not just for you, Maria, but for every employee who might be facing something similar." Maria looked at him skeptically. "You're going to fix the entire system overnight." "No," Elon admitted, "but I'm going to start with you. And from there, we'll make sure no one else has to go through this alone." As the conversation wound down, Elon's driver, Dave, knocked on the door, holding several bags of food from a nearby 24-hour diner. Maria looked surprised, then embarrassed. "Thank you," she said quietly, taking the bags. Elena smiled faintly. "It's been a long time since we had a proper meal together." As the three of them sat down to eat, the tension in the room began to ease. For the first time in a long while, Maria allowed herself to feel something other than exhaustion: hope. And for Elon Musk, the night marked the beginning of a new mission: to bridge the gap between innovation and humanity. Bridging the gap. Elon left Maria's apartment that night with his mind spinning. The faint glow of the hospital equipment and Maria's quiet resilience lingered with him as he climbed into the back seat of the waiting Model X. His driver, Dave, glanced at him in the rearview mirror, but said nothing as they pulled away from the dimly lit apartment complex. Elon had faced monumental challenges before, battling supply chain issues, revolutionizing transportation, and reimagining humanity's future on Mars. But this felt different. This wasn't about technology or business strategy. It was about people, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. He stared out the window at the passing streets, the rows of modest homes and shuttered storefronts. He had always prided himself on being a problem solver, but tonight he realized just how narrow his focus had been. He'd been solving the wrong problems. "Dave," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Yes, sir." "Have you ever felt like you missed something big? Something right in front of you? Dave's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Can't say I've lived your kind of life, sir, but yeah. When my sister was going through her rough patch, I didn't realize how much she needed help until it was almost too late. Elon nodded absently. I think I've been missing the bigger picture. We're building the future at Tesla. But what good is it if the people building it can't live their present? Dave didn't respond, but Elon could see him nodding slightly. The streets blurred into a haze of lights and shadows as the car headed back toward the gigafactory. Elon didn't sleep that night. Instead, he dove into Tesla's internal systems, poring over reports, surveys, and policies. The more he uncovered, the more glaring the gaps became. The following morning, Elon summoned an emergency meeting with Tesla's executive team. The group gathered in the sleek conference room, their faces a mix of confusion and curiosity. It wasn't every day that the CEO called a meeting at 6 a.m. Good morning, Elon began, his tone brisk. I'm going to cut to the chase. We're failing our people. The room fell silent. James, Tesla's head of HR, adjusted his tie nervously. Sir, if this is about the employee satisfaction metrics. It's not about metrics, Elon interrupted. It's about reality. Last night, I followed one of our engineers home. She's been working double shifts for months, skipping meals, and sacrificing everything to keep her mother alive. And no one here knew. Not me, not you, not anyone. The executives exchanged uneasy glances. This isn't an isolated case, Elon continued. Maria Torres is just one person, but I'm willing to bet there are others like her. People who are putting in everything they have while quietly falling apart. We can't let that happen. James cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, we have programs in place for employees facing hardships. Financial assistance, counseling services. Programs that require paperwork and approvals, Elon said sharply. Programs that force people to expose their struggles to a bureaucracy that may or may not help them. Do you think Maria had the time or energy to fill out forms when she was choosing between feeding herself and paying her mother's medical bills? James looked down at the table, clearly out of his depth. We need to do better, Elon said firmly. And we need to start now. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Elon personally oversaw the creation of a new initiative within Tesla, one that prioritized the well-being of employees as much as it did production quotas and innovation metrics. He called it the Foundation Program. The program had three core components. Proactive support. Tesla would actively monitor for signs of distress among employees, not to invade their privacy, but to ensure no one fell through the cracks. Employees who showed signs of financial, emotional, or physical strain would be discreetly approached and offered assistance. Human-centric benefits. The existing assistance programs were overhauled to make them accessible and immediate. Instead of requiring extensive paperwork, employees could speak directly with a designated advocate who would handle the logistics on their behalf. Employee Trust Fund. Tesla established a substantial fund to cover emergencies, such as medical bills, housing crises, or unexpected expenses. The fund operated without strings, giving employees the dignity of receiving help without unnecessary barriers. Elon personally funded the initial $100 million for the program, a gesture that sent shockwaves through the company. For a man often criticized as distant or focused solely on grand ambitions, it was a deeply human act that resonated with Tesla's workforce. Meanwhile, Elon kept in touch with Maria. He knew the changes he was implementing wouldn't help her overnight, but he was determined to ensure she felt supported. He sent a private medical team to evaluate her mother's condition and cover the cost of any necessary treatments. He also arranged for flexible work hours, allowing Maria to spend more time at home without losing her income. Maria resisted at first, her pride making her hesitant to accept help. But after a long conversation with Elon, she began to understand that accepting help didn't mean weakness. It meant strength. You're one of the best engineers we have, Elon told her during one of their conversations. I can't afford to lose you. And more importantly, your mother can't afford to lose you. Let us help. The ripple effects of the foundation program were immediate. Stories of employees receiving life-changing assistance began to circulate within Tesla. A single mother was able to secure housing after a sudden eviction. A factory worker received counseling and financial aid after losing a spouse. A young technician's medical bills were covered, allowing them to focus on their recovery. But the impact extended beyond Tesla. News of the program spread, sparking a larger conversation about corporate responsibility. Other companies began to reevaluate their own policies, inspired by Tesla's bold approach. Elon knew the journey was far from over. The foundation program was just the beginning, a first step toward creating a workplace that truly valued its people. But as he walked through the factory one evening, watching employees work with a renewed sense of purpose, he felt a rare sense of satisfaction. Maria's story had opened his eyes to something profound. Innovation wasn't just about technology, it was about humanity. And if he could combine the two, there was no limit to what Tesla and the world could achieve. Later that night, as Elon reviewed the day's progress, he received a message from Maria. It was short but heartfelt. "Thank you, Mr. Musk, not just for helping me, but for seeing me. For seeing all of us." Elon stared at the message for a long moment, a faint smile on his face. For all his grand visions of Mars and beyond, this, helping people, might just be his most important mission yet. Transforming a legacy. The weeks following the launch of the foundation program were a whirlwind, both for Tesla and for Elon Musk. Word spread quickly through the company, sparking a mixture of curiosity, relief, and cautious optimism among employees. For many, the idea of their CEO prioritizing their well-being felt as revolutionary as the electric cars and rockets they worked on. Elon, however, was far from satisfied. The changes were significant, but they were just the beginning. He knew that implementing the foundation program would require more than goodwill. It would demand cultural shifts, systemic adjustments, and a level of transparency that Tesla, like many corporations, wasn't accustomed to. The challenge wasn't just fixing the cracks in Tesla's support system. It was creating an entirely new framework for how a modern company cared for its people. Maria's impact. At the heart of this transformation was Maria Torres. While she never sought to be the catalyst for change, her story became a powerful symbol within Tesla. Employees began referring to the program informally as Maria's Law, though she adamantly rejected the attention. "I'm just doing my job," she would insist whenever someone brought it up. But for Elon, Maria represented more than just an individual case. She embodied the kind of dedication and perseverance that Tesla was built on, the kind of spirit that made the impossible seem achievable. And she had done it all while carrying an immense personal burden. Elon continued to check in with Maria, though he made a point of doing so discreetly. He respected her desire for privacy, but he also wanted to ensure she had the support she needed. The medical team he had sent for her mother, Alina, provided regular updates on her progress. They confirmed what Maria had been fighting so hard for. The treatments were working. "She's improving," Maria told Elon during one of their conversations. Her voice trembled with a mix of relief and disbelief. "The doctors say she might even be able to start physical therapy soon." "That's good to hear," Elon said. "But don't stop taking care of yourself, Maria. You're just as important." Maria hesitated before nodding. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to feel a sliver of hope, not just for her mother, but for her own future as well. A radical shift in perspective. Elon didn't stop at the foundation program. He began rethinking Tesla's entire approach to employee welfare. If Maria's story had taught him anything, it was that innovation wasn't limited to technology. It could and should extend to how people were treated. The first step was addressing the most immediate needs. Tesla's cafeterias were revamped to offer free, high-quality meals 24/7, ensuring no employee went hungry during long shifts. The company also introduced wellness hubs at every major facility, providing access to mental health counselors, financial advisors, and on-site medical staff. But Elon's vision went further. He tasked his executive team with creating a new initiative called the Humanity Project, which focused on embedding empathy into Tesla's core values. The project included empathy training for leaders. Managers underwent immersive workshops to better understand the challenges their teams faced, both at work and at home. This included role-playing scenarios, one-on-one coaching, and shadowing employees during their shifts. Transparent pay structures. Tesla introduced a system that allowed employees to see how their salaries compared to industry standards, ensuring fair compensation. Regular pay reviews became a cornerstone of the company's policies. Flexible work models. Recognizing that rigid schedules often exacerbated personal struggles, Tesla implemented a range of flexible work options. Employees could now adjust their hours or work remotely without fear of repercussions. Community building. Tesla created forums and events that encouraged employees to share their stories and connect on a personal level. These spaces became platforms for solidarity, where workers could offer advice, resources, and emotional support. Backlash and breakthroughs. The changes weren't without resistance. Some executives argued that the new programs were costly and might detract from Tesla's bottom line. Investors, too, voiced concerns, questioning whether Elon's focus on employee welfare would hurt profitability. Elon met these criticisms head-on during a quarterly earnings call. "We're not just building cars or rockets," he told investors. "We're building the future. And if we don't take care of the people who make that possible, then we've failed before we've even started. This isn't a cost. It's an investment in our most valuable resource, our people." His conviction silenced many doubters, but the true test came in the months that followed. As the Foundation Program and Humanity Project gained traction, something remarkable happened. Productivity at Tesla skyrocketed. Employees reported feeling more motivated, engaged, and loyal than ever before. Retention rates improved dramatically, and job applications flooded in from top talent across the industry. Tesla wasn't just seen as a leader in technology. It was becoming a pioneer in corporate culture. A visit to Sunshine Gardens. One sunny afternoon, Elon decided to pay Maria and her mother a visit. This time, he came bearing gifts: a fully restored Tesla Model 3 for Maria and a custom-built adjustable bed for Elena, designed by Tesla engineers. When Maria opened the door, her expression shifted from shock to a wide smile. "Mr. Musk," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "I wasn't expecting you." "I thought it was time for a follow-up," Elon said with a grin. "How's everything?" Maria led him inside, where Elena greeted him warmly from her new bed. Her cheeks had a healthy flush, and her voice was stronger than the last time he'd seen her. "Mr. Musk," Elena said, "I don't know how to thank you. Maria tells me you've done more than I could have imagined." "You don't need to thank me," Elon replied. "Maria's the one who made all of this possible. She's the reason we're changing things at Tesla." Maria blushed but didn't argue. For once, she allowed herself to feel proud of the role she had played. Looking to the future, as Elon left Sunshine Gardens that day, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Maria and Elena's story wasn't just a personal victory. It was a testament to what could happen when corporations prioritized humanity over profit. Back at Tesla, Elon continued to refine the Foundation Program and Humanity Project, constantly seeking ways to improve. He knew there was still work to be done, but he was more committed than ever to creating a workplace where people didn't just survive, they thrived. For Elon, the lessons he had learned through Maria's journey extended beyond Tesla. They shaped his vision for all his ventures, from SpaceX to Neuralink. He began to see every project not just as an opportunity to innovate, but as a chance to uplift the people behind the innovation. And for Maria Torres, life slowly began to change. Her mother's health improved, her workload became manageable, and she finally allowed herself to dream of a future that wasn't defined by sacrifice. As she settled into her new life, Maria often thought back to that night when Elon Musk knocked on her door. She didn't see him as a savior. He had simply opened a door that she hadn't dared to knock on herself. But for that she would always be grateful. And she knew her story had sparked something far greater than she could have ever imagined. A new standard for tomorrow. Months passed, and the ripple effects of Tesla's transformation were felt far and wide. What had started as a quiet decision to follow an exhausted employee home had blossomed into a revolution in corporate culture. Tesla was no longer just a symbol of cutting-edge technology. It had become a beacon of empathy and innovation. Maria Torres was no longer the overworked, sleep-deprived engineer Elon Musk had first observed through a grainy security feed. With her mother's health steadily improving, she began to find balance in her life for the first time in years. Though she remained humbled by the role she had played in sparking change, Maria couldn't ignore the ways her life had transformed. At the same time, Elon found himself grappling with new challenges. Success brought attention, and attention brought scrutiny. The changes at Tesla were celebrated by many, but they also faced criticism from those who believed Elon had strayed from his focus on profitability. Still, Elon remained steadfast in his belief that businesses could and should balance innovation with humanity. The Maria Standard. Internally, Tesla employees began referring to the new culture as the Maria Standard, a term that spread far beyond its original context. To Tesla workers, it symbolized the idea that everyone's contributions mattered and that no one should suffer in silence while carrying the weight of their responsibilities. In honor of Maria, Tesla introduced an annual Maria Torres Award to recognize employees who exemplified resilience, creativity, and a commitment to their colleagues. Maria was the first recipient, and during the ceremony, she delivered a heartfelt speech that left a lasting impression on everyone present. "I never wanted to be the face of change," Maria began, her voice steady but emotional. "All I wanted was to do my job, to take care of my family, and to survive. But I've learned that sometimes survival isn't enough. Sometimes we need to challenge the systems that make survival so hard in the first place. I didn't fix Tesla, Elon, and all of you did, but I'm proud that my story helped us realize we could be better." The room erupted into applause, and Elon, watching from the front row, felt a rare sense of contentment. For all his achievements, this moment stood out as one of his proudest. Breaking boundaries. As Tesla's new policies gained traction, their influence began to extend beyond the company's walls. Industry leaders took notice, with some even reaching out to Elon directly for guidance on implementing similar changes in their organizations. "What made you do it?" asked the CEO of a competing automaker during a conference. "Why put so much focus on something that doesn't directly impact the bottom line?" Elon smiled faintly, his gaze distant. "Because it does impact the bottom line. When you invest in your people, you invest in your company's future. But beyond that, it's about doing the right thing. If we're going to build a better future, we can't leave the people who make that future possible behind." The CEO nodded thoughtfully, scribbling notes. Across industries, companies began adopting elements of Tesla's model, from wellness hubs to employee trust funds. What started as a personal mission had grown into a movement. Maria's next chapter. As life at Tesla continued to evolve, so did Maria's role within the company. Recognizing her talent and resilience, Elon personally invited her to join a new team focused on designing Tesla's next-generation energy systems. The position was a step up, both in responsibility and compensation, but more importantly, it offered Maria a chance to work on projects that aligned with her passion for sustainability. Her mother, Elena, had also made significant strides. The experimental treatments had not only extended her life, but restored much of her strength. She began volunteering at local clinics, using her nursing experience to help others in need. Though she insisted on remaining humble, many in the community viewed her as an inspiration. One evening, as Maria returned home from work, she found her mother sitting at the kitchen table, poring over a stack of handwritten notes. "What's all this?" Maria asked, setting down her bag. Elena smiled. "I've been thinking. If Tesla can change the way businesses operate, maybe we can do something similar for healthcare. No one should have to fight as hard as we did just to stay alive. Maria paused, struck by her mother's determination. You really think we can make a difference? Elena reached out and took Maria's hand. We already have, but there's more to do. The legacy of change. Back at Tesla, Elon remained as relentless as ever, constantly seeking ways to improve. The Foundation Program and Humanity Project continued to evolve, guided by feedback from employees and external experts. He also launched a new initiative called Future Forward, aimed at bridging the gap between corporate responsibility and global impact. Through Future Forward, Tesla began partnering with local communities to provide education, job training, and renewable energy solutions. These programs weren't just about giving back, they were about creating a more equitable world. As these initiatives gained momentum, Elon found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. In many ways, Maria's story had been a wake-up call, forcing him to confront blind spots in his leadership. But it was also a reminder of the power of connection, of what could happen when people truly saw and supported one another. A vision for the future. On a crisp autumn evening, Elon stood on the rooftop of Tesla's headquarters, watching the sun set over the city. The air was cool, and the distant hum of the factory was a comforting reminder of the work being done below. His phone buzzed with a message from Maria. It was a simple photo. Her mother, smiling broadly, standing in front of a small clinic with a sign that read, Elena's Hope, free care for those in need. Below the photo was a short message. Thank you for helping us see what's possible. Now it's our turn to pay it forward. Elon stared at the message for a long moment, a rare smile spreading across his face. For all his ambitions, colonizing Mars, creating sustainable energy, revolutionizing transportation, this felt like one of his greatest accomplishments. Not because of the systems he had built, but because of the lives he had touched. As the last rays of sunlight faded, Elon turned back toward the office. There was still work to be done, but for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was on the right path, not just for Tesla, but for the future he wanted to build for everyone. And with that, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next. Elon tucked his phone back into his pocket, the weight of Maria's message settling deep within him. It wasn't the kind of weight that burdened, it was the kind that clarified, that crystallized a sense of purpose. For years, his vision had been focused outward, on Mars, on energy, on transportation. But tonight, he realized something profound. The greatest revolutions often begin within. A conversation with the board. The next morning, Elon stood before Tesla's board of directors. The meeting had been called unexpectedly, and the board members were still settling into their seats, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Elon, one of the directors, began, "We've seen the changes you've implemented. The Foundation Program, the Humanity Project, these are ambitious initiatives. But some of us are concerned about the financial implications. Investors are asking questions." Elon leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. "I understand your concerns," he said, his tone calm but resolute. "But let me ask you this. What is Tesla's purpose? Is it just to build cars and rockets, or is it to create a better future?" The room fell silent. "We're not just a company," Elon continued. "We're a movement. And movements don't thrive on profits alone. They thrive on people. The people who design, build, and drive our products. The people who believe in our mission. If we don't invest in them, then everything else falls apart." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The changes we've made aren't costs. They're investments. And the returns, they're already coming in. Our productivity is up, employee retention has skyrocketed, and we're attracting some of the brightest minds in the industry. But more than that, we're showing the world that innovation doesn't have to come at the expense of humanity." One of the directors, an older man with decades of corporate experience, leaned back in his chair and nodded slowly. "You've always been a risk-taker, Elon," he said, "and maybe this is the biggest risk of all. But I'll admit, it's hard to argue with the results." Maria's clinic. Meanwhile, Maria and her mother Elena were embarking on their own journey of change. The clinic, Elena's hope, had become a beacon of light in their community. It offered free medical care to those in need, funded in part by the assistance Maria and Elena received from Tesla's foundation program. Maria juggled her work at Tesla with her efforts to expand the clinic, using her engineering skills to design cost-effective solutions for medical equipment and renewable energy systems. The clinic's solar panels, donated by Tesla's energy division, ensured it could operate sustainably, even in emergencies. Elena, once bedridden and dependent on others, now found herself at the center of the clinic's operations. She trained volunteers, counseled patients, and became a mentor to young nurses. Her strength and resilience inspired everyone who walked through the clinic's doors. One afternoon, as Maria adjusted a piece of medical equipment she had designed, she received a call from Elon. "How's the clinic coming along?" he asked. "It's incredible," Maria said, her voice filled with pride. "We're helping so many people. I never thought we'd get here." Elon's voice softened. "You've done something extraordinary, Maria. You turned your struggle into something that helps others. That's what true innovation looks like." Maria smiled. "I learned from the best." A legacy of change. Over the next year, Tesla's transformation became a case study for other companies around the world. The Foundation Program and Humanity Project were no longer seen as risks, but as models of corporate responsibility and innovation. Elon's decision to prioritize his people had set a new standard, and the results spoke for themselves. Other CEOs began visiting Tesla's facilities to learn from its success. Some were skeptical at first, but after seeing the changes firsthand, happier employees, more engaged teams, and stronger communities, they couldn't deny the impact. Elon, however, was never one to rest on his laurels. He continued to push boundaries, not just in technology, but in the way businesses operated. He launched a global initiative called Humanity First, aimed at encouraging companies across industries to adopt similar practices. It provided resources, training, and funding to help organizations prioritize their people. A quiet evening. One evening, months later, Elon found himself back on the rooftop of Tesla's headquarters. The city lights stretched out before him, and the hum of the factory below was a reminder of the progress being made. His phone buzzed with a new message. It was a photo of Maria and her mother, standing in front of the clinic with a group of volunteers. They were holding a banner that read, "Together, we build futures." Elon smiled. It wasn't the headline-grabbing achievements like landing rockets or unveiling new vehicles that defined him now. It was the quieter victories, the ones that reminded him of what truly mattered. As he stood there, watching the stars begin to emerge in the night sky, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had always dreamed of building a better future. Now he knew that future wasn't just about technology. It was about the people who made it possible. And in that moment, Elon Musk, the man who had once been consumed by grand visions of Mars, realized that the most important revolution was one that had started right here on Earth.